The alarm clock screamed at 4:30 in the morning, just like it did every single day. Maria's hand shot out from under the thin blanket, slapping the button to make it stop. For a moment, she lay there in the darkness of her tiny bedroom, listening to the quiet breathing of her daughter in the next room. Just 5 more minutes, she thought. But she knew better. 5 minutes would turn into 10, and then she'd be rushing, and rushing meant mistakes. And mistakes at the diner meant less tips. She pulled herself up, her feet finding the cold floor. Her body ached in that deep, tired way that comes from working too many hours for too many years. 32 years old, and some mornings she felt twice that age. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the old refrigerator in the kitchen. Maria moved through her morning routine in the dark, trying not to wake up her 8-year-old daughter, Sophia. Let the kids sleep a little longer. School didn't start until 8. Mrs. Chen from downstairs would get her ready and walk her to the bus stop. The bathroom mirror showed a woman who looked worn down. Dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide anymore. Hair that needed a proper cut, not just the quick trims she gave herself with kitchen scissors. But there wasn't money for salons. There was barely money for anything beyond rent, food, and keeping Sophia in clothes that fit. Every dollar had a job, and none of those jobs included making Maria look pretty. She tied her hair back in a ponytail and splashed. Cold water on her face, coffee. She needed coffee. The kind that came in a can from the discount store, not the fancy stuff her customers ordered at the diner. She made it strong and black, drinking it while standing at the kitchen counter, looking at the bills stacked next to the toaster. Electric bill, water bill, Sophia's school supplies. The car needed new brakes, but that would have to wait another month. Everything always had to wait. By 5:15, Maria was out the door, her waitress uniform already on under her jacket. The desert morning was still cool, that brief window before the Arizona sun turned everything into an oven. Her car, a beat-up Honda that was older than her career at the diner, started on the 3rd try. She whispered a little prayer of thanks. The day it didn't start would be the day everything fell apart. Angelo's diner sat on the edge of town, right off the highway where truckers and early morning construction crews stopped for breakfast. It wasn't fancy. Red vinyl booths with duct tape covering the tiers. A counter with wobbly stools. A jukebox in the corner that only played country music from the 80s. But it was clean. The coffee was hot, and the food was cheap. That's all most people wanted at 5:30 in the morning. Maria was always the first waitress to arrive. She liked it that way. It gave her time to set up her station, fill the salt and pepper shakers, and prepare herself for the rush. By 6 o'clock, the place would be packed with men in work boots and safety vests, all wanting eggs, bacon, and pancakes before heading to job sites.
"Morning, Maria,"
Angelo called from the kitchen. He was already at the grill, the smell of bacon filling the air. Angelo was a big man with a bigger voice, somewhere in his 60s, hands that had been cooking breakfast for 40 years. He was gruff, rarely smiled, but he was fair. He paid on time and didn't ask questions when Maria needed to leave early for Sophia's school events. "Morning, Angelo," she called back, tying her apron around her waist. The apron was stained with 3 years of coffee spills and ketchup smears. She'd washed it 100 times, but some stains became permanent. It's like some situations in life. The door chimed and the first customers walked in. 2 construction workers she recognized. They always sat at the counter and ordered the same thing. 2 coffees, black. 2 number 3s, with scrambled eggs and wheat toast. She had their order memorized, but she still wrote it down. It was part of the routine, part of the dance she did 6 days a week. "How you doing, Maria?" one of them asked, settling onto a stool. "Living the dream, Tommy," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It was the answer she always gave. Living the dream. It was supposed to be funny, ironic. A waitress at a highway diner? Living the dream. But sometimes, when she said it, she wondered what her actual dreams had been. Had she ever really had any? Or had life just happened to her one day after another until she ended up here? The morning rush hit like it always did. Orders flying, plates sliding across the counter, coffee pots that emptied as fast as she could brew them. Maria moved through it all with practiced efficiency. Smile at the customers. Remember the regulars' names. Refill the coffee before they asked. Clear the plates quickly. The faster she moved, the faster the tables turned, and the more tips she made. By 9 o'clock, the rush was over, and the diner settled into its mid-morning lull. Maria's feet were already hurting, and she still had another 4 hours on this shift. Then she'd have a 2-hour break before coming back for the dinner rush. That's what double shifts meant. Open to one, then for 2 close. 16 hours at the diner with just enough time in between to pick up Sophia from school and help her with homework. She was refilling napkin holders when Carmen, the other morning waitress, came over. Carmen was younger, maybe 25, and still had that energy that Maria remembered having once upon a time. "Girl, you were humming again," Carmen said, smiling. "That song from yesterday?" "The pretty one." Maria hadn't even realized she was doing it. Humming, singing under her breath. It was just something she had always done, especially when her mind wandered. Old songs her grandmother taught her when she was little, back when her family still lived in a bigger city, back before everything got smaller and harder. Was I bothering people? Maria asked, suddenly self-conscious. Bothering them? Tommy asked if you were on the radio or something. He said you should be on one of those talent shows. Carmen laughed, but not in a mean way. You really do have a beautiful voice. I keep telling you. Maria waved her hand dismissively. That's nice of you to say, but singing doesn't pay the bills. This does. She gestured around the diner with the napkin holder. But Carmen's words stayed with her through the rest of the shift. Singing had been her escape for as long as she could remember. When she was washing dishes in the back, she sang. When she was driving home late at night, she sang. When Sophia was asleep and the apartment was quiet, she stood by the kitchen window and sang to the empty street below. It was the one thing that was completely hers. The one thing that made her feel like she was more than just a tired waitress barely making ends meet. Her grandmother had been a singer, a real one, performing in theaters back in Mexico City before immigrating to the United States. She'd taught Maria all the old songs, the ones with words that meant something, melodies that could make you cry or make you remember better times. You have a gift, Mia, her grandmother used to say. Don't waste it. But what was Maria supposed to do with a gift that didn't come with instructions or opportunities? She couldn't exactly walk into a recording studio and ask for a job. She had no training, no connections, no time. She had bills and a daughter and a life that didn't leave room for dreams that big. By the time 1 o'clock came, Maria's feet were screaming and her back ached. She clocked out, changed out of her coffee-stained uniform, and headed to her car. 2 hours. She had 2 hours to be mom, to pretend she wasn't exhausted, to be present for the little girl who was the only reason she kept going. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of slow day at the diner where Maria could almost hear the clock ticking on the wall. The lunch rush had been lighter than usual, just a few regulars and some travelers passing through. She was wiping down the counter for the 3rd time, making work where there wasn't any, when she heard the bell above the door chime. 3 people walked in carrying equipment. Camera bags, tripods, those big lights that professional photographers used. They looked out of place in Angelo's diner, dressed in clothes that were trying to look casual, but probably cost more than Maria made in a month. The man leading them was Asian, maybe in his 40s, with glasses and the kind of confident walk that said he was used to being in charge. We're filming a documentary, he explained to Angelo, who had come out from the kitchen looking suspicious. Small towns, real America, that kind of thing. Would you mind if we set up and shoot some footage? We'll buy lunch for everyone here and won't get in the way. Angelo looked at Maria, then back at the man. Long as you're not making us look bad. This is a respectable establishment, of course, the man said, extending his hand. I'm James Chen. We're just capturing authentic moments. Real life, real people. Maria continued her work, trying to stay out of the way as they set up their equipment. She'd seen enough reality TV to know how these things worked. They'd film for hours, use maybe 30 seconds, and make everything look either more dramatic or more boring than it actually was. Whatever, as long as they tipped decent. She didn't care. She was in the kitchen washing dishes an hour later when it happened. She'd forgotten they were even there, forgotten about the cameras. The hot water ran over her hands, steam rising from the sink, and she started singing. It was automatic, something she did without thinking. An old song one her grandmother used to sing while cooking. The words were in Spanish about love and loss and hope. Maria's voice filled the small kitchen, bouncing off the stainless steel surfaces. She didn't know James had walked back there. Didn't know he'd frozen in the doorway, his hand held up to stop his cameraman from making noise. Didn't know they were filming her, this tired waitress in a stained apron, singing over dirty dishes like it was the most natural thing in the world. When she turned around, "Oh, I'm sorry, did you need something?" James just stared at her for a moment. That was beautiful. "What song was that?" Maria felt her face get hot. "Just something my grandmother taught me. Sorry, I didn't mean to be loud." "Loud?" "No, no." James shook his head. "Would you mind if we filmed you? Just for a minute. You singing while you work. It's exactly the kind of authentic moment we're looking for." Maria wanted to say no. Wanted to explain that she looked terrible, that her hair was a mess, that she was sweaty from the hot kitchen. But James had that look people got when they'd already decided something, and she was too tired to argue. "I guess that's okay," she said quietly. They filmed her for maybe 3 minutes. Asked her name. Asked her to sing again. She felt ridiculous the whole time, self-conscious about every note. When they finished, James thanked her. They paid their bill, plus a generous tip, and they left. Maria figured that was the end of it. Just another strange thing that happened at the diner. Story she'd tell Carmen tomorrow. She forgot about it completely until 2 weeks later. It was Sophia who saw it first. Maria's daughter was staying at a friend's house for a sleepover. The friend's older sister showed them something on her phone. "Look, this video is everywhere. This lady singing at a diner? It made me cry." Sophia looked at the screen and screamed, "That's my mom. That's my mom." The friend's mother called Maria immediately. "Did you know you're all over the internet?" Maria had no idea what she was talking about. She didn't spend much time online. Couldn't afford a fancy phone with unlimited data. She had an old smartphone she used for calls and texts and checking her bank account. That was about it. But when she picked up Sophia the next morning, the girl was bouncing with excitement. "Mom, you're famous. You have to see." At home, Sophia pulled up the video on their laptop, the old one Maria had bought used 3 years ago. And there it was. Her, washing dishes at Angelo's diner, singing in Spanish, completely unaware she was being filmed. The video was part of some documentary trailer, but it was her voice, her face, her moment that everyone was sharing. The comments were endless. Thousands of them. "Who is this woman?" That voice gave me chills. "Better than half the singers on the radio. Someone get her a record deal. This is what real talent looks like." Maria sat there, staring at the screen, not quite believing it was real. The video had been viewed 2 million times. 2 million. She couldn't even imagine that many people. "Isn't it amazing, Mom?" Sophia asked, practically glowing with pride. "I look terrible," Maria said, which was the first thing her brain could process. "You look beautiful," Sophia insisted. "And you sound like an angel." "Everyone thinks so." The phone started ringing that afternoon. First, it was the local newspaper wanting to do a story, then a radio station, then someone claiming to be a talent manager from Los Angeles, which Maria assumed was a scam, then another manager, then a local theater, then a producer from some singing competition show she'd never heard of. Angelo called her at home, something he'd never done before. "Maria, there's been reporters coming by the diner asking about you." What the hell is going on? She tried to explain, but it sounded crazy even to her own ears. A video went viral. People were sharing it. Now everyone wanted to talk to her. "Well, you working tomorrow?" Angelo asked. "Of course I'm working. I need the job." "Good, because we've been twice as busy today with people coming in hoping to see you. Finally got some free advertising." He hung up without saying goodbye, which was typical Angelo. Maria sat on her couch that night after Sophia went to bed, her phone buzzing with messages and notifications she didn't know how to handle. There was an email from a talent manager named Patricia Rodriguez who said she'd represented other unknown singers and wanted to offer her services. There was an invitation to audition for a local theater production. There was a message from the Regional Arts Council about a singing competition. It was overwhelming, exciting, and terrifying at the same time. Maria had spent so many years pushing down any dreams that weren't practical, any hopes that didn't come with a paycheck. And now, suddenly, the world was offering her something she'd never dared to reach for. But reality set in quickly. She had bills due in a week. She had rent coming up. She had Sophia to take care of. Whatever this moment was, however many people had seen that video, it didn't change her actual life. She couldn't eat internet comments. She couldn't pay the electric bill with views and likes. Still, she watched the video one more time before bed. Watched herself singing in that kitchen, lost in the music, unaware anyone was watching. She looked tired in the video, worn down, but there was something else there too. Something she hadn't seen in herself for a long time. She looked alive. She looked like someone who had something worth sharing with the world. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Another opportunity. Another person telling her she had talent. Maria turned off the phone and went to bed. Tomorrow was Wednesday. She had the early shift. The dishes wouldn't wash themselves, and the customers would still need their coffee. Famous or not, viral or not, life didn't stop just because the internet noticed you for 5 minutes. But as she lay there in the dark, she couldn't help wondering, what if this wasn't just 5 minutes? What if this was actually something real? She fell asleep with that thought, scary and hopeful all at once. The messages didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. Maria's phone would light up at all hours with emails, texts from numbers she didn't recognize, voicemails from people using words like opportunity and potential and career-changing moment. She started leaving her phone in her locker during shifts because she couldn't focus on taking orders when it wouldn't stop buzzing. 2 weeks after the video went viral, Maria sat at her kitchen table with a pile of bills on one side and a stack of printed emails on the other. Sophia was doing homework on the couch, occasionally glancing over at her mother with worry in her eyes. Kids always knew when something was wrong, even when you tried to hide it. The numbers didn't lie. Maria had done the math 3 times. Talent manager, Patricia, was offering to represent her for free until she started making money. The local theater was holding auditions for a new production in 2 weeks, and they specifically wanted her to try out. There was even a regional singing competition with a cash prize of $5,000 for first place, but here was the problem. The theater rehearsals would be 3 nights a week for 2 months, plus weekend performances. The competition required her to travel to Phoenix for the preliminary rounds, which meant taking time off work. And even if she worked with Patricia, there were no guarantees. No promises of actual paid work, just hope and potential and maybe. Meanwhile, her rent was $800 a month. The electric bill was due. Sophia needed new shoes because she'd outgrown her old ones. The car was making that sound again. The one that meant something expensive was about to break. Maria put her head in her hands. This was impossible. How did people do this? How did anyone chase a dream when reality was so expensive? Mom? Sophia's small voice broke through her thoughts. Are you okay? Maria looked up and forced a smile. I'm fine, baby. Just thinking. Sophia got up and came to the table, looking at all the papers. She was only 8, but she was smart. Too smart sometimes. Is this about the singing? Yeah, it is. Are you going to do it? The audition thing? Maria sighed. I don't know, honey. It's complicated. I have to work. We need money for rent and food and everything else. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that broke Maria's heart. I don't need new shoes. Mine still fit okay. Your toes are cramped in those shoes. I saw you limping yesterday. Can make them work, Sophia insisted. If it means you can sing, you should do it, Mom. You're really good. Maria pulled her daughter into a hug, blinking back tears. This kid, this beautiful kid, was willing to wear shoes that hurt her feet so her mother could audition for a play. It wasn't fair. None of this was fair. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Maria did something she rarely did. She called her sister, Isabella, who lived 2 states away with a husband and a comfortable life that included things like savings accounts and vacation days. You should do it, Isabella said, immediately after Maria explained everything. When are you ever going to get another chance like this? Bella, I can't just quit my job and hope things work out. I have responsibilities. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm saying try. Audition for the play. Do the competition. See what happens. You've been working at that diner for 3 years, Maria. 3 years of double shifts and sore feet and barely scraping by. What's it getting you? Where's it leading? Leading to Sophia having a roof over her head and food in her stomach? And what's she learning? That dreams are stupid? That you should just accept whatever life hands you and never reach for anything more? Isabella's voice softened. Look, I know I don't understand what it's like. My life is easier. I get that. But I also know my sister has an incredible gift, and I've watched her bury it for years because she's scared. I'm not scared. I'm being realistic. You're terrified. And you know what? It's okay. You should be scared. It's scary. But you're also the same person who moved to a new city alone when you were pregnant, who raised a kid by yourself, who worked 16-hour shifts without complaining. You're one of the strongest people I know, and if you can do all that, you can handle auditioning for a stupid play. After they hung up, Maria sat in the dark living room for a long time. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. She thought about her grandmother, who had given up her singing career to immigrate to America to give her family a better life. She'd worked in factories and cleaned houses, and she'd never complained. But sometimes, late at night, Maria would catch her grandmother singing those old songs with tears in her eyes, and she'd understood, even as a child, that her grandmother was mourning something she'd lost. Was that what Maria wanted? To be 60 years old, looking back, wondering what could have been. The next morning, Maria went to work early and asked to speak with Angelo. He was in the back office, doing paperwork, which he hated. He looked up when she knocked, his reading glasses perched on his nose. "What's wrong?" he asked. Angelo wasn't good with emotions or conversations that weren't about food orders. "To ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." He put down his pen. "All right. If I needed to adjust my schedule for a couple months, not quit, just work different hours, would that be possible?" Angelo leaned back in his chair. "Is this about that singing thing?" Maria nodded. "You any good?" "I mean, really good. I don't know. People seem to think so." Angelo was quiet for a moment, his face unreadable. Then he said, "My daughter wanted to be a dancer. She was good too. Really good. I told her it was a waste of time. Told her to focus on school, get a real job. You know what she does now?" "What?" "She's an accountant. Makes good money, has a nice house, and she's miserable. Hasn't smiled a real smile in years." He looked at Maria directly. "I can work with a different schedule. Might not be able to give you as many hours, but we'll figure it out." Maria felt something tight in her chest loosened. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Still got to figure out how to pay your bills." That was the truth. Even with Angelo's flexibility, Maria was looking at less money coming in. She'd have to cut expenses somewhere. No eating out, not even the cheap tacos Sophia loved. No new anything unless it was absolutely necessary. Every dollar would have to stretch further than it already did. She spent her lunch break that day sitting in her car, writing out a budget on the back of an old receipt. It would be tight. So tight that one unexpected expense could ruin everything. But if she was careful, if nothing broke and nobody got sick, and the universe gave her just a little bit of luck, she could make it work for 2 months. 2 months to see if this was real or just another dead end. That evening, she sat Sophia down and explained what she was thinking. "I'm going to audition for the play. I'm going to enter the singing competition. But that means we have to be very careful with money for a while. It means no extras. No treats. It means things might be harder than they already are." Sophia's face lit up. "I don't care about treats. I care about you being happy. What if I fail? What if I audition and they don't pick me? What if I'm not as good as everyone thinks?" Sophia grabbed her mother's hands, looking serious in that way kids do when they're trying to be grown up. "Then at least you tried. You always tell me that trying is what matters. Remember when I was scared to try out for the school play?" "Ah!" "You said being brave means doing things even when you're scared." "Ah!" Maria laughed, feeling tears prick her eyes. Using my own advice against me, huh? You should listen to yourself more often. You give good advice. That night, Maria sent 3 emails. One to Patricia, the talent manager, saying she wanted to work together. One to the theater, confirming she'd be at the audition. One to the competition organizers, submitting her application. Her hand shook as she hit send on each one. This was crazy. This was impractical. This was the opposite of everything she'd learned about being responsible and realistic. But somewhere, deep inside, in a place she'd almost forgotten existed, Maria felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt hope. And hope, she was learning, was a dangerous and wonderful thing. The audition was scheduled for Saturday at 2 in the afternoon at the community theater on the east side of town. Maria had driven past the building 100 times but never been inside. It was one of those old buildings that had probably been beautiful once. With Art Deco details on the outside and a marquee that lit up at night, she'd barely slept the night before. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind raced with worries. What if her voice cracked? What if she forgot the words? What if everyone realized she had no idea what she was doing? She'd never had formal training, never taken a single voice lesson. Everything she knew about singing came from her grandmother, and from years of singing to herself when nobody was listening. Sophia helped her pick out an outfit that morning. They settled on a simple black dress Maria had bought years ago for a funeral. It was the nicest thing she owned. She paired it with shoes that looked professional, but made her feet hurt within 5 minutes of putting them on. Beauty was pain, or so they said. You look beautiful. Mom, Sophia said, straightening the collar of the dress. I look terrified, Maria corrected. Checking her reflection one more time. You look like a star. Maria drove to the theater with her hands gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. She arrived 20 minutes early and sat in the parking lot watching other people go inside. They all looked confident, like they belonged there. Like they did this sort of thing all the time. Maria felt like an imposter, a waitress playing dress dash up. Her phone buzzed. A text from Carmen at the diner. You got this, girl? Knock them dead. Another text from her sister Isabella. Remember, they're lucky to hear you sing, not the other way around. And one from Angela, which surprised her. All it said was, don't mess it up. That actually made her smile. Classic Angelo. She got out of the car and walked toward the theater. Her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The lobby was filled with people. Some were clearly other auditioners, holding sheet music and doing vocal warm-ups. Others looked like they were part of the production team, carrying clipboards and wearing headsets like they were. Coordinating a military operation, Maria checked in at a table, where a young woman with purple hair took her name and handed her a number 47. She was number 47. The waiting area is through those doors, the woman said, barely looking up. Someone will call your number when it's your turn. The waiting area was a large room with chairs lined up against the walls. About 20 people were already there, and more kept arriving. Maria found a seat in the corner and tried to make herself invisible. Everyone else seemed to know each other, chatting and laughing like this was a social event. She heard fragments of conversations about other shows they'd been in, voice teachers they studied with, auditions in other cities. This was a mistake. These people were professionals, or at least semi-professionals. She was just a waitress who happened to sing in the shower. First time. Maria looked up. A woman around her age had taken the seat next to her. She had kind eyes and a warm smile. That obvious? Maria asked. I remember my first audition. Thought I was going to throw up. The woman extended her hand. I'm Christine Maria. You're nervous? Completely terrified. Christine laughed. Good. That means you care. The ones who aren't nervous are either delusional or genuinely talented. And there's only about 3 of those in any given audition. They talked for a few minutes, and Maria felt some of her panic ease. Christine had been doing community theater for 5 years, working as a nurse during the day and performing at night. She made it sound normal, like something regular people did. Number 23, a voice called out. Christine stood up. That's me. Good luck, Maria. You're going to be great. Maria watched her go, then went back to her spiral of anxiety. She listened as numbers were called, watching people disappear through the door to the audition room. Some came back smiling. Others looked disappointed. One guy came back and immediately left the building without talking to anyone. Number 47. Maria's legs felt like rubber as she stood up. This was it. She picked up her purse, smoothed down her dress, and walked through the door. The audition room was actually the main theater. The stage was lit by harsh spotlights, and the seats stretched back into darkness. Maria could see silhouettes of people sitting in the front rows. 3, maybe 4 of them. Maria Rodriguez? A voice called from the darkness. Yes, she said, her voice smaller than she wanted it to be. Come up on stage, please. Stand center stage, right in the light. Maria climbed the steps on the side of the stage, her heels clicking on the wood floor. The spotlight was blinding. She couldn't see the judges at all now, just a wall of white light, and beyond it, darkness. What will you be singing for us today? The voice asked. It was a man's voice, calm and professional. Nessun Dorma, Maria said. It was the song her grandmother had performed in her youth, an aria from an Italian opera. It was ambitious, maybe too ambitious. Patricia, her new manager, had suggested something simpler, more contemporary. But Maria wanted to honor her grandmother, wanted to sing the song that had meant so much to her. There was a pause from the darkness. Then the voice said, That's quite a challenging piece. Whenever you're ready? Maria closed her eyes. Her mouth was dry. Her hands were shaking. She thought about backing out, apologizing, maybe singing something easier. But then she thought about Sophia sitting at home, believing in her. She thought about her grandmother, who had given up her dreams. She thought about all those mornings at the diner. Wondering if this was all her life would ever be, she opened her mouth and started to sing. The first notes came. Out shaky, weak, wrong. Maria heard it and almost stopped. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. She was failing in front of people who knew music, who would recognize immediately that she didn't belong here. But then something shifted. She stopped thinking about the judges, stopped thinking about the spotlight. She thought about washing dishes in the kitchen at the diner, singing when she thought no one could hear. She thought about singing Sophia to sleep when she was a baby. She thought about her grandmother's hands guiding hers, teaching her the old songs, and her voice changed. It opened up rich and powerful, filling the theater. The shakiness disappeared, replaced by something raw and genuine. Maria poured everything into that song. Every early morning, every aching foot, every bill she'd worried over, every dream she'd pushed down. It all came out in her voice, in notes that soared and dipped and climbed again. She wasn't technically perfect. A trained singer could probably point out a dozen places where her technique was wrong, but what she had was something else. Something that made the woman taking notes in the front row stop writing and just listen. Something that made the director sit forward in his seat. When she finished, the theater was silent, completely silent. Maria stood there, breathing hard, suddenly aware again of the spotlight, of the sweat on her palms, of how vulnerable she'd just made herself. Then a sound from the darkness. Clapping. Then another person joining in. Then another. Thank you, Maria, the director's voice said. And now it sounded different. Warmer. That was extraordinary. Truly, we'll be in touch by Monday. Maria walked off stage on legs that barely held her. She made it to the lobby, out to her car, before she started shaking. Not from fear this time. From the release of it. From the weight of having actually done it, her phone rang. Patricia, how did it go? I don't know, Maria said, honestly. I sang. I didn't pass out. Beyond that, I have no idea. I'm proud of you either way, Patricia said. Making it to the audition is half the battle. Maria drove home in a daze. Sophia was waiting at the window and ran out when she saw the car pull up. How was it? Did you do good? What did they say? Maria picked up her daughter and spun her around. I did it, baby. I actually did it. That night, Maria couldn't stop replaying every moment in her mind. Every note, every pause, every second of that performance. She had no idea if she'd get the part, but she'd done something she never thought she could do. She'd stood on that stage and sang her heart out, and for the first time in a very long time, Maria felt proud of herself. Monday came and went with no phone call. Maria tried not to think about it, but every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. By Tuesday evening, she'd convinced herself she hadn't gotten the part. Of course she hadn't. What had she been thinking? She was taking orders at the diner Wednesday afternoon when her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but something made her answer anyway. "Maria? This is David Chen, the director from the audition." Her hand tightened around the phone. "Yes, hi. I wanted to call you personally. Maria, we'd like to offer you the lead role in our production." The coffee pot in her other hand nearly slipped. She set it down quickly. "The lead. Are you sure?" David laughed. "Very sure. Your audition was remarkable. Raw, powerful, and exactly what this show needs. Rehearsals start next Monday. I'm emailing you the contract and schedule now." After she hung up, Maria stood there in the middle of the diner, stunned. Carmen had to wave a hand in front of her face. "Girl, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I got it," Maria whispered. "I got the lead role," Carmen screamed and hugged her right there in front of customers. Angelo came out from the kitchen looking annoyed. When Carmen told him the news, even he cracked a smile. The next 3 months were the hardest and most incredible of Maria's life. She worked at the diner from 6 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, then rushed to rehearsals from 4 until 9 at night. She'd get home exhausted, help Sophia with homework, and fall into bed only to wake up and do it all again. The rehearsals were intense. The director pushed her constantly, teaching her things about projection, breathing, movement on stage. The other cast members were supportive, especially Christine, who'd also gotten a role. They became friends during those long rehearsal nights, bonding over forgotten lines and sore muscles. Patricia, her manager, came to several rehearsals and started making calls. She was setting up meetings with people in Phoenix, talking about possibilities after the show closed. Maria tried not to get her hopes up too high, but it was hard not to imagine what could be. Money was tighter than ever. Maria had to cut her hours at the diner to make rehearsals, which meant smaller paychecks. She stopped buying coffee out, started meal planning down to every ingredient, drove only when absolutely necessary. One week her bank account had $47 until payday. She had to choose between putting gas in the car and buying groceries. She bought groceries and borrowed gas money from Carmen. Sophia never complained. She came to every rehearsal she could, doing homework in the theater seats. Watching her mother transform into someone new on that stage. Sometimes Maria would look out into the empty theater during rehearsals and see her daughter watching with such pride it made her want to cry. Opening night was scheduled for Friday, 3 months after that first audition. The show had already sold out, which was unusual for community theater. But Maria's viral video had drawn attention. Local news stations had done stories. People were curious about the singing waitress who'd become a lead actress. The week before opening night, Maria barely slept. She ran lines in her head while pouring coffee. She practiced songs in the car. She dreamed about forgetting her lines, about tripping on stage, about her voice giving out completely. Thursday night, the night before opening, the cast did a final dress rehearsal. It went terribly. Maria forgot a line. Another actor missed an entrance. A piece of the set fell over. Everyone was exhausted and stressed and convinced the show would be a disaster. "This is good," David told them afterward. "Bad dress rehearsal means good opening night. It's theater tradition." Maria wasn't sure she believed in traditions, but she didn't have a choice. Opening night was coming whether she was ready or not. Friday arrived. Maria called in sick to the diner for the first time in 3 years. She needed the day to prepare, to breathe, to not think about anything except the show. She spent the morning with Sophia, making pancakes and watching cartoons like they used to do when Sophia was younger. "Mom, are you scared?" Sophia asked during a commercial break. "Terrified," Maria admitted. "You're going to be amazing. I know it." "How do you know?" Sophia thought about it seriously. "Because you're my mom." and my mom can do anything. That afternoon, Maria drove to the theater early. She sat in her car for a few minutes, looking at the building. The marquee had her name on it. Not the biggest letters, but there it was. Maria Rodriguez. Lead role. Backstage was chaos. People running around, adjusting costumes, checking props, arguing about lighting cues. Maria found her dressing room, which she shared with 2 other actresses. She sat down at the mirror and started putting on her makeup, hands shaking slightly. There was a knock on the door. Patricia stuck her head in. "You have visitors." Angelo walked in, looking uncomfortable in a button-up shirt and tie. Carmen was with him, along with half the staff from the diner. Even Tommy, the construction worker who always ordered the number 3, was there in a suit. "We all got tickets for tonight," Angelo said gruffly. "Figured we should see what all the fuss is about." Maria felt tears threatening her makeup. "You guys didn't have to do this. Are you kidding?" Carmen said. "We're not missing this. Our girl on stage. This is history." They left her to get ready, but their visit had steadied her somehow. These were her people. They'd known her when she was just a waitress with a dream. She didn't dare speak out loud. The stage manager called 15 minutes to curtain. Maria finished her makeup, put on her costume, and joined the other actors warming up backstage. She could hear the audience filing in, the buzz of conversation, the excitement in the air. She peeked through the curtain. The theater was packed. Every seat filled. She spotted Sophia in the front row, sitting between Angelo and Carmen. Her daughter was wearing the nicest dress she owned, and her face was glowing with excitement. Places. The stage manager called Maria took her position on stage, hidden behind the closed curtain. Her heart was pounding. Her mouth was dry. In 30 seconds, that curtain would open, and she would have to form in front of hundreds of people. She thought about that morning at the diner when the documentary crew had filmed her. She'd been so embarrassed, so sure nothing would come of it. She thought about all the auditions and rehearsals and sacrifices. She thought about her grandmother, who she wished could be there to see this. The lights dimmed. The audience quieted. The curtain began to rise, and Maria stepped into the spotlight. What happened over the next 2 hours was magic. Not perfect magic. She stumbled over one line and had to improvise. Her voice cracked slightly during an emotional song. But none of that mattered, because what she brought to that stage was real. It was raw and honest and powerful. When she sang the final number, a powerful aria that showcased everything she'd learned, the theater was completely silent except for her voice. She poured her entire soul into those notes, every struggle and hope and fear and triumph. The final note hung in the air. Then the lights went down. For a moment, nothing. Just darkness and silence. Then the audience exploded. People jumped to their feet, applauding, cheering, shouting. Maria stood there on that dark stage, tears streaming down her face. Overwhelmed by the sound of it, the curtain call felt like a dream. The whole cast came out for bows, but when Maria stepped forward for her solo bow, the applause got even louder. She could see Sophia standing on her chair, clapping so hard her hands must have hurt. Angelo was actually smiling. Carmen was crying. Backstage afterward was a blur of hugs and congratulations. David told her she'd been extraordinary. Patricia was already on her phone, texting contacts about what she'd just witnessed. But the best moment came when Maria finally made it to the lobby, and Sophia ran to her, wrapping her arms around her mother's waist. "You were perfect," Sophia said. "The most perfect ever." "I made mistakes," Maria said, laughing and crying at the same time. "I didn't see any mistakes. I just saw my mom being a star." Over the next week, the show sold out every performance. Critics from the local paper gave it glowing reviews, specifically praising Maria's luminous presence and untrained but deeply moving voice. Patricia got her meetings with people in Phoenix. A recording studio wanted her to come in for a session. A bigger theater in Tucson wanted her to audition for their spring production. 2 weeks after closing night, Maria sat at her kitchen table with Sophia looking at a contract. It was for a 6-month run at a professional theater in Phoenix. The pay wasn't huge, but it was more than she made at the diner. Enough to support them. Enough to keep chasing this dream, What do you think? Maria asked her daughter. I think you already know what you're going to do, Sophia said wisely. She was right. Maria knew. She'd known since that first night on stage, standing in the spotlight, feeling more alive than she had in years. She signed the contract the next morning. She went to the diner and gave Angelo her notice. He took it better than she expected. You're going to do great, he said. Just remember us when you're actually famous. I could never forget this place, Maria said honestly. This is where everything started. On her last day at the diner, the regular customers threw her a surprise party. There was a cake and balloons and a card that everyone had signed. Tommy gave a toast that made her cry. Carmen gave her a necklace for good luck. As Maria walked out of Angelo's diner for the last time as an employee, she paused.